Hi, good morning, viewers. Welcome back to Think Podcast, zooming in youth networking and careers. So, in this episode, I am talking to Sandeep Ruhela. Sandeep is Chief Strategy Officer at Sharda Motors, the auto ancillary company. Sandeep is also having a wide interest in coaching youngsters about the project management. He is also faculty, guest faculty at a number of business institutes, MBA institutes across the country, and he keeps on sharing his knowledge, and not only in the project management but various aspects. So this Sunday morning, I had an opportunity to talk with him, understand the basics of the project management, and he has shared almost all the fundamental, the basics of project management, how one should look at it, why it is so important, what are the difference between the project management, why it is being done as a startup or a corporate organization or a government organization. He has also shared his experience and what he has gathered during his multiple visits to China, how the project management is advanced, or how overall the China economy is advanced as compared to India, and how India, the government and the private partnership need to evolve further to take up those challenges. And he has further advised the youngsters on the career as well as the education, and how the project management should be looked at as a way of life, not only as an academic or something to be pursued only from the professional point of view. So interesting episode. It is around 60 to 80 minutes. So please do watch it, and do subscribe to the Zinc Podcast channel on the YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. These are the important topics which are getting covered from the leaders like Sandeep, who are having the good and in-depth experience from industry as well as from the academics. So happy watching. Thank you. Hey, good morning, Sandeep.
Good morning. Good morning.
Welcome back to Zinc Podcast once again.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's always pleasure to come back.
No, it's a really wonderful thing. Last night we just chatted, and you agreed to do this another session this morning. It's 7:30 on Sunday. It's really means a lot.
I mean, topic is so interesting. This is something which I've been practicing for maybe more than a decade.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, yeah, it's very exciting topic and universal topic. So why not? Yeah, and early mornings are always good for that.
Absolutely. So, for the viewers, this session, Sandeep, you are going to talk about project management in particular. Maybe in between, you can give some anecdotes about your recent China visits. You wanted to share about your observation, your findings. We have seen the developments which are happening across in China, maybe as part of the conversation. So that we will try to focus upon project management.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Great, great. So, Sandeep, let's start with the basics of project management for our young viewers specifically. So, how do we start? For example, what exactly is project management, program management, or operations management? How these three terms are different, and how they should look at it?
See, I mean, as a naive person who do not know about, let us say, project management or program management, so everything will look same. Operations management, project management, and program management. But yeah, since I know now a little bit about it, so for me, operations management is how do you deal with your day-to-day task, right? For example, a worker is or an executive is working on a shop floor. Let us say we are trying to manufacture car. So whatever task is being done on assembly line on day-to-day basis, this is operations management. Now turn the scenario a little bit. Let us say there is a specific objective this year that we need to improve our productivity. In a single day, if car assembly line is churning, let us say 100 cars in a day, and you want to take it to 120 cars. So this 20 incremental number, this requires some specific effort, right? So for this specific effort, some special project has to be, put in place where, let us say, different functions, different department people will come together. They will take it as a goal. It will have a specific objective, specific start, specific end. So whenever we take a goal with specific start, end, and with specific people, then it is a project, right? Now, the third term, which you talked about, program management. So, the only difference between project management and program management is that program management could be a combination of multiple projects, right? So, to simplify it, let us say a company is trying to manufacture a new product. For simplicity, let's take car only because people, especially youngsters, relate with it very well. So whenever you are trying to manufacture a new, sorry, develop a new car, then it has an engine, it has transmission, it has, let us say, interior, it has exterior, it may have so many different features, right? So simultaneously, multiple functions or departments will work on developing engines, powertrain, transmission, let us say a lot of softwares which are now getting into cars, and maybe the exterior of the car, which we call the styling of the car, right? Everybody is specialized in its job and they will be simultaneously working. And at the end of the day, there will be one vehicle integration department which kind of combines everybody's effort
Mm.
together, right? So in this one, we have seen that there could be three or four different projects which could be running in parallel. But let us say it is a big program, which
Part
is,
of the bigger
let us say,
program.
maybe being managed at management level. And then everything at the end of the day integrates together. So this is program. So I hope in the simplest of the language, it is easier to understand.
Absolutely. Also, the project management seems to be universal. You go across all the industries, different organizations, be it the government, be it the startups, it is universal. So, what are the core principles you would like to share with the audience or the viewers? What exactly the core principles would be that they should be looking at?
Yeah, I think you are absolutely right. Project management or program management, now it is becoming universal, right? And last day only, I happened to read something on project management, and I was astonished after reading that across the world. Now, 50 to 70% of whatever work we are doing, it is being done in the form of project management or program management. In some organizations, definition of project management could be little weak. In some organizations, it could be very strong, structure wise, sources wise, or let us say how much effort is being put by management. So this is universal. Now, talking about some of the core principles of project management, I think the most fundamental thing is the core objective of what we are trying to do. So it will remain same across industries, right? Without core objective, you cannot do a project. Second thing is, I think, the plan, right? So planning has to be done across
Yeah.
industries. It does not change. Let us say that for one industry, you have a different plan. For another industry, you have a, of course, in nitty gritties, plan would be different, but principles will remain same. Third thing is basically execution. How do you execute the project? So typically it's mostly plan versus actual. You have a team, people review it on daily basis or weekly basis or monthly basis. So I think execution also more or less principle wise remains same. Then monitoring and control. So some organizations might use some tools which churn out automated dashboards. In some organizations, it could be Excel sheets where you are kind of putting in all the matrices of how do you
Yeah.
want to measure your progress of the project. So that is the only fundamental difference, but otherwise monitoring and control remains same. And I think there are a couple of more aspects. Communication with stakeholders. So this is very important
Yeah.
because most of the projects we understand that are funded by senior management. In some cases, it could be an external project. So in that case, it could be funded by, let us say, a customer. So stakeholder communication or stakeholder engagement is one of the most important aspect. That also kind of remains same across industry. So I think these are the core principles.
Great, great. So, Sandeep, we'll talk about each of these core principles as we go along. Now, coming back to my favorite domain is supply chain. Okay. So, any specific example you would like to share about any project in supply chain and how it is handled? In supply chain, typically
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
end up either doing a project internally within our teams, and more often it is with the external business partner, the suppliers, vendors, and other partners as well. So, any specific example, anything you would like to call out on the supply chain projects specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. So, although I come from more from sales and marketing background, but I was fortunate enough to be part of one supply chain transformation project
Mhm.
in one of my previous organization, and the name of the project was basically Project Shikhar. It
Wow.
was such a massive project that, as an objective of the project, it was taken that we need to improve our raw material cost, let us say by 4 to 5%. And in terms of rupee crore values, it could be more than 200 crore of rupees. So it was such a large project. And how it was done, there were many stakeholders involved. So first of all, there were more than 30 to 35 people across functions. Of course, sourcing was involved. Then new product development was involved. R&D was involved. Sales and marketing was involved. And project was so massive that we felt the need to have an expert consultant. So McKinsey was also involved in that. And in this project, then so let's call it a program, because then there were multiple projects inside this program. One was to basically establish best practices of sourcing and supply chain management. Second aspect was zero based costing, right? So, where you look at each and every element, you are basically dealing with your vendors.
Yeah.
You also get into their processes, you get into their process cost, and a lot of other aspect. The third important project in this was supplier share of buying, right? So
Yeah.
you might be procuring something at a higher cost from one supplier, and that supplier could be having higher share of business. So you kind of try to reconfigure your share of business with various vendors or suppliers to unlock value. Then there was another very important project was sourcing and supply chain analytics, because usually you are dealing with, in a large company, manufacturing company, you could be dealing with maybe more than 200 to 300 suppliers, vendors, and your buying could be more than 1500 to 2000 crore. This is so much of buying, and as in potential, so much of opportunity, that you really want to kind of analyze each and every data point to really look at where is the opportunity, right? So building supply chain analytics, so that whatever you are doing, let us say for the first time it is a project, but then it becomes a way of working. So I think this kind of went on for almost 18 months. And in 18 months, in fact, more than whatever we took as a goal, that value was unlocked by working on all the project levers. And as an organization, also, we became very competitive, because if you are really efficient in your sourcing and supply chain management, then of course, you increase your competitive advantage in the market in the form of, okay, now you can competitively place your products. So
Yeah.
it also helps you in improving your market share, because now you are more competitive, you have more financial muscles, which I would say that for any organization in the mid to long term, basically is a very good thing to have. So I think this was a
Absolutely.
massive project which was done in one of my previous organizations.
Okay, wonderful. So if you can also talk about, since you just said you are primarily, we know that sales and marketing, and also you are a chief strategy officer. So anything you would like to share about any examples on strategy and sales and marketing, how the project management is done, what are the various challenges you would one would come across in these different domains?
Yeah. So yeah, let's take maybe a project from front end, which we call sales and
Mm.
marketing. And again, I was fortunate enough to, kind of get an opportunity to work on a project on digital transformation. During COVID time,
Yep.
everybody was talking about contactless
Yes.
supply chain, contactless sales,
Yeah.
contactless whatever. So during that time, that project was coined in, and while COVID faded away, so we also changed the name of the project from contactless sales to, let us say, digital sales, right? Because it was more of a digitalization of entire customer journey. So customer journey starts from when they try to get in touch with you. If they show some bit of interest and ready to share his details, then you call it a lead. From lead to inquiry to actual delivery of the product, we call it sales funnel. So typically, what happens in many legacy organizations, this entire process is actually people driven. right? So whether they are noting down the details of lead or not, whether they are touching base with these leads timely or not, all of these factors define how much business from lead to delivery you are able to convert, right? So this project was basically taken to ensure that we are able to improve our business, we are able to improve our various conversion rates, and we are also able to improve our overall digital sales, right? So a big team was, again, it was such a specialized topic that we needed 5 to 6 different specialized vendors who could work with us on, let us say, website, lead management, or let us say also a lot of social media stuff, right? So all of these things were pretty new at that time for us. So we happened to work with 5, 6 different vendors. And then as a knowledge also, I mean, we were a legacy organization, so we did not know much about it. So we again had to have a consultant as well who had an experience of running a similar project in different organizations. Since you were talking about challenges of such projects, so you're trying to do something which is very, very uncertain.
Yeah.
You do not know what result it will give you, and still you are ready to put in a lot of your precious dollars in this. So management is also worried if nothing comes out, then how to show the face to board of directors. So that's why we kind of deployed a bit of foolproof methodology, where, as I said, we had best of the people who had credibility of delivering similar stuff. And of course, we faced a lot of delays in the project. We faced a lot of uncertainty. We couldn't achieve our goals of first year, but we learned quickly and we kind of improvised everything into a project plan. And kind of, if I say over the length of the project, there was, of course, some delay. There was, of course, not, let us say, full achievement of all the project goals, but it was a big learning and big journey for the organization in terms of setting up digital transformation in the organization.
So, you touch upon the risk and challenges. Anything which the youngsters or the midstream professionals should be really well aware of? What could be the different risks, challenges, issues? Which one should be looking at when starting the project, right from concept phase or when they're initializing that, and then running across the different project milestones?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a very important term in all the projects which we call risk register.
Okay.
And we basically, starting from project, setting up project objectives or project charter to project planning, then execution, monitoring, control, we kind of note down all the risk in that risk register. This risk could be related to, change of requirement of an important stakeholder. It's a risk for the project, right? Today, customer is asking for something. Tomorrow, let us say customer is saying that, okay, no, I want to change my requirement. So your entire project plan will get affected.
Yep.
Same way, you have an important technology vendor and you basically do not know whether, I mean, because of supply chain disruption these days, let us say this vendor is in some other country. Let's take example of China. Now you are taking very important core material of magnets, which now China has put on kind of, on hold.
Yeah.
Right. So this is another risk, supply chain risk, you can call it. Then there are people related risk, because let us say you're working on a new product development for which you need specialized people. And so these are special skill set people. And what if they leave you in between? Right. So
Yeah.
all of these are risks. So we maintain detailed risk register and we work on it. So, as I was talking about risk, so in project management, risk management is one of the most important aspects. There is a term called risk register where a good project manager will keep noting down all the risk. It could be related with stakeholders. It could be related with your vendors, technology vendors. It could be related to supply chain issues. It could be related to some special skill set person whom you have hired. And without him, let us say you cannot move on the project. So it's a very rigorous exercise. And to be honest, I feel that more than 30 to 40% projects which fail, they actually have a very poor risk management process.
Mm.
That's why it is a very important aspect. And everybody who whosoever is a budding project manager should put a lot of focus on learning risk management and how to do it.
Okay. So, Sandeep, thanks for sharing this. Multiple projects, we have seen that the scope also changes midway, that typically called scope creep. The timelines changes, as you also mentioned, the people changes, the communication stakeholder. In every aspect, there could be a risk. So, any specific framework which the project manager or the stakeholders should utilize to identify the risk, to mitigate them as we go along, or how they should identify that?
Yeah, I think another very important topic. To be specific in project management, we call it iron triangle, right?
Okay.
So in this iron triangle, you have scope, you have time, and you have budget, right? So this is
Mm,
triangle you have. Now you are talking about scope creep, right? So what happens? Scope can change. I mean, if you are working on a project which is a bit exploratory in nature, so let's take a project team is working on a new innovation. It could be a process innovation or it could be a product related innovation. So there are a lot of uncertainties at the starting, right? And then on the other side, there could be very streamlined projects like an organization has been manufacturing, let us say, two-wheelers or four-wheelers or some specific component for decades, if not decades, let us say years. Then they really know 90% of the process and product, right? So in such a project where uncertainty is less, chances of scope creep is less. But whenever you are working on a very innovative project, let us say, for example, let's take example of pharmaceuticals. So there you are working on a new drug discovery, right? So uncertainty is very, very high. In such a case, scope might change once you work along the project because you are also working on experimentative basis. So this is one, I think, good fundamental to kind of keep in place that, okay, what nature of project you are working upon and in what kind of one project scope creep can happen. Now, the question of how to manage scope creep because you still have limited time, you still have limited budget, and still you need to manage. See, it's very difficult. That's why we call it iron triangle because if you change one variable, which is scope, then you have to either work on your budget or you have to work on your time. So let us say a client has increased the scope of the project. Now, earlier you were to finish this project in, let us say, 6 months, but now because of enhanced scope, it will take 8 months. A client might give you unrealistic this thing that, okay, while scope is increasing, I do agree, but you have to manage in the same budget and same time. Then a good project manager will quickly go back on drawing board. He will look at his planning. He will look at wherever he had put in some buffer. A good project manager also will keep some buffer at the starting, in terms of planning, in terms of budget, in terms of resources. So that's where then, whenever you face unrealistic or uncertain situation, then you come back on drawing board and you see that, okay, 5 to 10% you can manage with that, whatever buffer you plan. Then you also see, as a team, here you use your team leadership or communication also.
yeah.
Some people might need to work little extra. They might need to put in little extra effort on weekends also. So that's where your leadership kind of, comes in and you play your victim card that, okay, client has put in a unrealistic demand and we have to, as a team, actually work little hard. So that aspect also you
Mm,
explore.
mm.
And then, of course, you explore, can you build in, can you do a bit of outsourcing of some work? Can you bring in some work in house to manage the cost? So I think there are various permutations and combinations depending upon the nature of the project, nature of the industry. A good project manager will play with.
So, Sandeep, you talk about risk register. So, can you also share about the work breakdown structure, WBS, risk breakdown structure, or any other methodology which is followed?
Yeah. So I think work breakdown structure is a very important aspect of project management. And usually, before making any project plan, you have to go through that process. This is the difference, basically, in an experienced project manager versus maybe a naive project manager. You have an objective which you break down into various goals. Those goals needs to be broken down into, let us say, various big ticket actions. Those actions then you break into basic tasks. Those tasks also needs to be broken down using work breakdown structure. Herein, basically, you look at to do a certain task. How much effort do you need to put in, right? So, in terms of working hours or working minutes, so a good project manager is actually very well trained in using WBS to really work on the breakdown of project plan, and they are able to estimate the timeline really well. Because as I was saying, some good project managers keep buffer in the project plan. So they are able to do that exercise because of work breakdown structure only. And some naive project manager who's new, he may struggle. So I think all the good budding project managers, they should really learn how to do use work breakdown structure. And for that, it also depends upon the nature of the project or nature of, for example, if you're working on a manufacturing project, and there will be a lot of processes related to production process or assembly process. So if you really don't understand, let us say, production as a process, then you
Yeah,
cannot do the breakdown. So
yeah.
knowledge of inherent process is also very important for doing work breakdown stuff.
So, Sandeep, what about the technology usage of technology tools into the project management? So, they are definitely multiple tools available. Could you share how important it is to use, from legacy applications, tracking everything on Excel, to the latest tools which are available now in the market?
Yeah. In fact, in my own journey of more than a decade, I have gone through such thing that, okay, first everything was on Excel and you were floating all the Excels to various team members on email. They will fill it. Then project manager kind of will compile everything in one
Yeah.
master sheet. He will use a lot of Excel skills. So whosoever is good in Excel, so chances are that project manager also will be efficient because you can use a lot of formulas, a lot of productivity tools within Excel to churn out your project reports much quickly. Then later on, I used a bit of Microsoft project management as well. Again, when I was using it, it was still not a collaborative tool. It was more of a that, okay, for project planning, you could use Microsoft project management. But what about, day to day monitoring, day to day collaboration with various team members? So, fortunately, recently, maybe 2 or 3 years back, when I was working on that digital transformation project, I happened to use Zira. So, this was recommended by one of our consultant that it is a very good collaborative tool. As a project manager, you can allocate tasks to various team members. These team members could be across the world, across various cities, right? So, task allocation is automated. Then they could update the task at wherever they are. I mean, because it's on cloud, so live update also will happen. So this entire aspect of team communication, project communication, building project reports, review reports, which we call, everything kind of can be tracked using Zira. So I think project management as a technology, in terms of technology usage, has evolved a lot for various these days for various departments or functions. There are different tools for project management. For example, if somebody is working on, let us say, strategy related projects, then they could use maybe Cascade strategy. This is a very good tool. If you are working on, in general, day to day project management, it could be a manufacturing project or a supply chain project, or let us say a sales marketing project. So I think Zira is a fantastic tool which people
Okay.
can look at.
So, I'm just intrigued. So, what exactly the difference this Cascade strategy brings in as compared to Zira in terms of functionality and usage?
I would say that, as I was saying, both are
Mm.
made for specific purpose.
Okay. Mm.
Jira is more of a general project management
Mm.
tool, where, let
Mm.
us say, you could use it for any kind of a project, be it a
Mm. Mm.
manufacturing project, R&D project, or supply chain project. But for Cascade strategy, the way it has been built, it is built for like strategy departments only. Because in strategy,
Okay.
you don't have, let us say, day-to-day projects or weekly projects. You may have a long lead items, right? So
Mm.
you have a 5 year strategy which you break down into various strategic initiatives. Those strategic initiatives are converted into various short term, mid term, long term projects. So Cascade is more tuned to strategy, which kind of enables you to basically work on more of a, mid term and long term project. So that is the basic difference involved.
Okay, great. So now, how with the advancement, we have the Gen AI, we will have very soon, or already starting with the agentic AI as well. So how AI is shaping their technology usage in project management?
So, the way, people are using Chat GPT, Perplexity these days, you just put some prompt and it kind of, gives you the output you are desiring. Although, unfortunately, I have not been able to use AI in project tools so far. But my understanding is if you put in your project objective, your project requirements, the chances are it could give you a sample project plan,
Yeah.
which could be 80 to 85% there. And then you just need to
Mhm.
spend maybe 15 to 20% of
Fine tuning it.
effort
Yeah.
fine tuning it. This is one.
Mhm.
Same way, let us say you need a review dashboard.
Mhm.
So, because of nature of AI, it is learning. It's capturing data across the world, and then it is training its model. So, depending upon the nature of the project, which matrices you should be measuring in terms of lead or lag KPI, again, so it can basically give you a automated matrices dashboard also. So while I was reading last week or so, more usage of AI is actually decreasing the cognitive ability of brains of human beings,
Yeah.
which in the long term is going to actually impact our brain power. For time being, I think this is what all the brainy job would be done by AI. So in project management also, I think these are the two aspects which I can think about.
So you just touched upon the KPIs as well. So what are the important KPIs young project manager or the different stakeholders should look at the different stages at their level when they're going to the stakeholders or they're going to the leadership for their sponsorship or maybe the mentors or the guides, different, people are interested in different aspects. So what are the important KPIs, lead and lag KPIs?
Yeah. So yeah, I think every stakeholder wouldn't be interested in same thing from a same project. While as a project manager, you have to monitor all the KPIs related to scope, time, budget, quality, risk, and maybe the functionality of the project, product as well. Let us say if it is a product
Yeah.
project. So project manager has to maintain a detailed KPIs. Under project manager, then there could be specific project team members who could be working on specific aspects. So they kind of would be will be looking at specific KPIs which kind of fall into their role and responsibility. But now let's talk about stakeholders. Stakeholders could be a steering committee. It could be a combination of senior management people from like, yeah, let us say a CEO, CFO, maybe sales and marketing, CSMO, or maybe R&D head, right? So these people are not interested in, let us say, all the KPIs. So you have to kind of streamline your KPIs for the specific requirements of the stakeholders. So let us say R&D head may not be interested in the budget, but he's more interested in the functionality or whatever innovation related KPIs you are working upon. So you have to kind of build a dashboard tuned to his requirements and you have to share it with him. CFO would be more interested in like, okay, we allocated X budget to you and you said that, okay, this is the timeline and stages of the project, you will consume this much. So I am more interested in while you are achieving the objectives of the project, but tell me about plan versus actual of budget consumed, right? Or let us say at what cost you are going to make this project. Same way, a CSMO could be interested in, okay, I asked you for these five features which are very important in the product to compete with my competition. So, what is the status of the
Yeah.
development of these features? So, I think depending upon the nature of stakeholder, KPIs will change, and a smart project manager will not supply everything to everybody. He would be
Hmm.
very specific with respect to his communication in terms of project status, what he's sharing with various stakeholders.
So you have multiple time touched upon the importance of stakeholders and people, Sandeep. So let's talk more about it. Specifically, we have the startups, we have the now the corporates, which are really extensive. They are the global in nature, diverse population with different experience, geographies, cultural aspects as well. So how one should be able to handle all these complexities, which people. So I also heard that you also touched upon the project probably generally don't fail because of planning, but mostly they fail because of the people. right? So what's your take on that?
Yeah. So, like, these days, the way organizations are working, I mean, these GCCs, Global Capability Centers, what are they trying to
Yep.
do? They are basically trying to use India as a base for doing more, let us say, knowledge-based work. So people here could be working for, let us say, customers in US, customers in Europe, and many other countries. They could be simultaneously collaborating with engineers or other team members across various offices of an organization, right? So it's a
Yep.
collaborative work environment. And then you are also dealing with stakeholders from various backgrounds, right? As you very importantly touched upon culture, right? So
Yep.
the way an American as a stakeholder would behave would be very different, let us say, a stakeholder in India, right? So as an Indian, let us say two Indians are talking to each other, they would be able to understand each other better. But if you really talk to, let us say, an American as a stakeholder, his interest, his way of looking at things would be very, very different, right? So that's where stakeholder register is also made. So what do you do in that is you basically make a list of all the important stakeholders, what is their area of interest, how they can impact your project, that also you kind of define. You also gather a bit of information about their background, who are they as a people, person, as a professional, what are their hobbies, interests, so that you are able to know them better. So you make this stakeholder register. After this, you put it on two axes, right? So you also see the impact on the project and then also their capability to basically help you in the project as well, right? So on this 2 by 2 axis, you really identify which is the important quadrant. So at a time, you will realize that, okay, out of 10 stakeholders you have, 4 or 5 are highly impactful. They can change the game. While there are other stakeholders who are everybody's important. So I'm not trying to say that one person is more important, other is less important. But a good project manager would be able to differentiate who can impact your project, make or break kind of one stakeholders. You identify them very clearly, looking at their background requirements. You design your stakeholder communication in the similar way. Some people might need update on daily basis, some on weekly basis, some only want an update on monthly basis. For some people, only a formal meeting is okay. For some people, you need to meet them informally over coffee,
Yep.
sometime maybe over beer, and also kind of. So a good project manager is more or less like, fighting against all the odds. And
Mm.
he has to be smart enough to differentiate among these stakeholders and plan his tackling strategy accordingly. Right. This is what I wanted to bring some light on.
So often the project manager would want his team to be agile, resilient, right? So, and you have a proper framework, agile framework available, and when these two methodologies are brought together, this really leads to something really which is much more efficient. So, agile project management. So, how do you see what message you would like to convey to the young project managers on the agile framework? How to adopt the agility, how to become more resilient, and how to really bring these two methodologies together in really to achieve the objectives?
Yeah. So these days, I mean, agility is actually a core value of many organizations.
Yeah.
Looking at today's competitive world, everybody wants to kind of, launch new products or services very quickly. Maybe 10 years back, a car was taking 3 to 5 years to get, let us say, launch. But these days, within 12 to 18 months, customers are expecting a new product, right? So even organizations are working on that way. So looking at the market requirement, project management methodology is also changing. While legacy organizations or governmental organizations could be using the most basic project management process, but these days many organizations are shifting to agile project management, more so with a lot of software based product development companies and many of these being startup, right? So
Yeah.
they are actually competing against time, competing against a very worthy competition. So they have very tight timelines, right?
Yeah.
So, and also another aspect is innovation, right? So if you're working on a new product which is not there in the market, then you need to quickly do your experiments, fail in those experiments, learn from those experiments, and then quickly come back, right? So for one new innovation, you might need to do, let us say, experiments. So you don't have 3 years to do that. So you want to do all of these 10 experiments in 6 to 9 months period. So for that, you have to use Agile framework where everybody is tuned to work in that Agile environment that, okay, let's quickly work. If you want to bypass some processes, please do that. But let's do these experiments, fail, learn, quickly come back. In 9 months, we want the refined product or innovation. This is the basic fundamental difference in both the frameworks.
Great. So you just touched upon startups, right? So we know that startups would definitely would like to be agile. So what exactly is the difference between having a project management being done in a startup or a legacy corporate organization which is global in nature, something which is hugely technology oriented, and then the last one is a government organization. Maybe you could take our country's example. Right. So, what are the fine differences between the project management approaches as of now, and what better we can do?
Yeah, so I think yes, your categorization is perfect. On one side, you have governmental organizations,
Yeah,
right? And they mostly have projects which are long lead, like they could be working on, let us say, building a difficult bridge, a
yeah,
difficult railway line. Example
yeah.
is recent
JLM, yeah,
Jhelum bridge. So I think it took maybe more than 10 years from
yeah,
thinking about this project to executing it, right? So it's a very different nature of project. Same way, let us say government working on finding new oil wells, right? We recently heard about one new discovery in Andamar Island of maybe 20 trillion worth of.
yeah,
But how much time government takes in terms of bringing this potential to actual commercial usage
yeah,
of oil, we know how much time it will take. So, okay, this is one set of organization. A second set of organizations are basically global MNCs which are working on very hyper competitive environment, and they basically need to launch multiple products, multiple services with fixed timeline, right? So one fine example could be, let us say, Toyota, for example. It's a very global company. They're competing everywhere in all the countries, and they are basically having their set of processes. Now let's turn the table a little bit. Toyota was enjoying similar competition in the form of Honda, in the form of General Motors, in the form of Mahindra, to say so, Tata in our country, right? But suddenly table turned. Now you have a Tesla, which started as a startup in automobile industry, and they kind of started working on the process itself. They told, why do so many components exist in the car? And if we also kind of get into making so many components first and then assembling those components, for chances are we cannot beat Toyota ever, right? So they started working on process innovation itself. That's how they kind of worked on giga castings or giga stampings. And they started saying that, okay, 1,000 parts I have combined into 10 parts, right? So I don't have to now be like Toyota. Toyota mastered one art in 50 years of how to combine multiple components. And in one shot, Tesla removed that skill set, which Toyota
yeah,
with 50 years of work. So this is the category of startup. So in the game of Tesla, now there is another startup which actually kind of giving it very tough fight, BYD, right?
yeah,
So we saw that in a matter of last 3 years, BYD has beaten Tesla as well, and at least in numbers, if
yeah,
not in market cap, right? So now let's look at the project management. So one side you have governmental organizations. Yes, they have a timeline. They have, let us say, fixed budget. But still, the way government operates looks like most of their projects overshot in timeline as well as budget, right? So, and maybe they don't have required skill set or and maybe they are not chasing profits, right? So this is the fundamental difference. Talking about global MNCs, they now understand that in most of their products and services, they are actually competing with startups. Some of the organizations are changing very fast. They are also deploying agile methodologies. If they cannot do it in their legacy organization, then they are acquiring startup or they are separating, let us say, a new agile organization from their parent organization to work on innovation. That's how they are coping up. And startups from day one are agile. They know very well that okay, they if they are funded well, then they have a lot of money which they can, let us say, waste or invest in various experiments, but they don't have luxury of time. So they
Time,
know
yeah.
that within 6 or 9 months they have to quickly do
Time
all
to
these
market,
experiments.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Time to market is very, very
Mm,
tight for them. So, and they are also kind of, heavily kind of, scrutinized by PE
mm,
funds, investors,
yeah.
VCs. So from day one, starters are agile. So I think
Mm,
this is the
mm.
basic fundamental difference in the project management approach of these three type of organizations.
Great. So we just touched upon the River Jhelum railway bridge. It's really a wonderful bridge which has been done, and you just said probably it took 10 years, more than that, I believe 17 years, what I heard, right? So cost overrun. And now India is in a different phase where we are looking at Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is the need of the hour. So how do you see the project management need to go to the next phase as far as government projects are concerned, as far as government and private partnerships are concerned, right? So recently seminar has happened, ET supply chain conference was there, and I was reading a lot about that in LinkedIn. And the leaders there were talking about the supply chains and the project management, which are now taking the focus from the top leaders as well, from the government as well as the corporate leaders. So, any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I think very interesting aspect that okay in today's time. So you touched upon my China experience.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that I'm a China expert, but yes, happened to travel a lot in last 5 6 months, and that's where I see a clear and stark difference in terms of how government collaborates with private institutions as well as academic institutions there, right? So, in a lot of aspects, China is, let us say, 20 to 25 years ahead of India. China was 4 trillion economy in 2008, and India is today 4 trillion economy in 2025. So practically, if you look at the time difference, it is effectively 17 years, but I would
yeah,
maybe term it as 25 to 30 years,
yeah,
considering considering the efficiency of projects in China versus India.
yeah.
So in China, they talk in months. They never talk in years. You would have seen a lot of articles on even on or videos on social media that they are innovating the basic process of how buildings should be made, not in years but months,
Years,
right?
months, yeah.
They are establishing large factories in a matter of months, right? So they have completely disrupted the basic processes as well. So this is China. Now, if you look at India, we are still following the legacy processes only. Be it our, let us say, real estate sector or let us say road and transport sector, if you really look at fundamental process has not changed. So this is one big difference. Second aspect is also the efficiency, right?
Yeah.
How do you work on efficiency? Because China is world's factory, right? And they export and compete literally with everybody. Because if you are exporting to US, exporting to Europe, exporting to, let us say, even India, you have to be extremely cost competitive. Of course, I understand in US and Europe, cost targets are not that stringent. But let us say Indian companies who are producing in India and China, which is producing in China, so those products cannot be competed. I give you one fine example. I was reading one article. This is a guy, American guy who's based out of Shanghai. And he was sharing his experience of one new product development, which he gave as a sample to some Indian company as well as a Chinese company. And he
Mhm.
was sharing his, kind of, experience. It was some electronics product for which, let us say, you needed some PCB, you needed some other materials, and China is expert of PCBs. China is actually having all the raw materials, literally, right? So what happened? Chinese company in a matter of 3 weeks gave a sample to that guy that okay, this is the sample, and Indian company took 3 months in
Three
giving that
months.
sample. So India does not manufacture high quality PCB and at a competitive cost. China does. So that same Indian company actually imported PCBs from China. That itself took 3 months. So not sorry, 3 months, but 3 weeks,
Three
right?
three weeks, yeah.
three
Mm.
weeks. And then your manufacturing processes, your automation level, skill set of workers, right? So in a nutshell, while Chinese company produced this sample in 3 weeks, Indian company produced similar sample in 3 months,
Three
and the
months.
cost difference was 30%. So
That
Indian
was.
sample was 30% higher, right? So this is what we are competing with. So when people say that, okay, we are competing with China, as a person, when I did not travel in China, I was always kind of believing in that, okay, we are in a right direction, and maybe in a matter of 5 to 10 years, we would be able to compete with
Mm,
China. But
mm,
after visiting China, looking at their technological prowess, their basic fundamental project management, participation of government in educating organizations, universities' role. This
yeah,
is truly PPP, public, private,
private
and in,
partnership.
academic.
Academics, yeah.
Let me call it PPPA,
Yeah.
because universities also there play very important role, right?
True.
So this is what we are talking about. And I think in India, project management still at nascent stages. There's only global organizations which are promoting project management as a practice. And then, of course, there are some large Indian organizations which have used project management very effectively. One fine name is L&T. I haven't heard L&T really delaying any project, right?
True.
So for any budding project manager, studying what L&T does in project management could be a very good learning. In fact, if they really want to learn project management, they should see how they can get an opportunity to work with L&T.
Yeah.
So this is my thought process.
Okay, great. So, you just mentioned about the young people. So, what are your career advice where they should look at project management and how early they should look at it? Many of them are coming from the different background. They have different aspirations. They would be joining different organizations or might be starting their own startups, right? So, you just in the very beginning said that it is universal, right? So, from that way, I believe everyone should understand the basic concepts, not only the basic concept, but for the youngsters, should be the medium to expertise level. They should be at the knowledge or experience. So, what is your career advice to the youngsters? And
So, to be honest, today project management is not taught in our colleges as a
mm,
general practice, right?
mm,
While some MBA colleges have started offering project management as a separate
okay,
specialization, but
okay.
largely, I would say that 90% it is available as, let us say, extra skill, which
Mm-hmm,
people kind of, after coming out of their colleges, they kind of,
mm,
try to learn. But I have a very different thought process. I feel
mm,
that it is not just a college topic, it is actually a school topic. Because
okay,
here we are talking about basically way of working. Project
true,
management is nothing but a way of working.
true.
How to structurally think about objectives, goals, planning, execution, measurement. So, I mean, we learn all of these topics in school in terms of basic maths, basic science, but we don't really learn the application of it in schools. So, I feel that, so I would have a very different take, might be 100% different from all the budding project managers. I feel that it is a school topic, and in fact,
Mm-hmm,
it should be put in the academics that project management should be learned from very early age. It's a way of life. It's a way of working. It will develop as soon as you start it in your career. For people who have developed way of working, let us say they're working in organizations for 5 years, 10 years, and now you are telling them, okay, now change your way of working. It's going to be very, very difficult for them. You would have
true.
seen that. I'm also almost having this 15, 16 years of experience. If somebody asks me to learn a new skill, it is very difficult for
Very
me.
difficult. Yeah.
Same is true for you, right? So this is what I feel, that
Yeah.
it's a school topic, and government should put it there. And once we do that, then of course it should come in engineering colleges as well as MBA colleges, and then it definitely comes in organizations. As a
Mm,
shortcut, I feel that all the organizations should train their 100% workforce, at least in the most basic project management
okay.
process. They will see a fundamental difference in their way of working,
Mm,
productivity improvement, efficiency improvement. Japanese call it by different words. They
okay.
call 5S, when they say TPM, when they say Toyota production system, or Kubota production system. This is basically project management only of that particular process, right? And it is being taught in Japanese schools,
Mm, mm,
right?
mm.
So maybe we can talk about Japan sometime.
No, definitely that will be interesting topic. Japan as a country has always inspired most of us. Apart from China, Japan remains a topic to be studied in depth.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So this is what I feel that how it
Yeah,
should be done. So my advice, because you asked for the advice
yeah.
to budding project managers, or let us say people who are currently studying either in engineering or MBAs, and let us say if they want to choose project management as a career, if somebody is teaching them in their colleges or not, they should definitely do it on their own.
Mhm.
Because if they do it, they will see stark difference in their approach of working, which will be a big differentiator when they work tomorrow in various jobs in different
Okay.
organizations.
So how they can acquire these skills? I know that PMP certification is there, but I guess that is for the experienced project managers. And how easy, difficult is even for the project experienced ones to get it?
Yeah. So these days, I think fundamental courses are available on various online
Okay.
platforms like Coursera, or there could be Udemy is also there. And in fact, we will find a lot of free material even on YouTube, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm,
this is the most fundamental content available on project
mhm,
management.
mhm,
This is one. Second thing, I think you talked about PMP. So PMP as a certification, somebody who's really serious about his or her career as a project manager or program manager, they should definitely certify themselves. Of course, PMP, for PMP certification, PMI, which is a governing body, they ask for certain years or months of project management experience. But
mhm.
the fundamental difference is it is not per se that you have to be working as a project manager to be able
Okay.
to show that experience. It is just that you have to show that you have worked on certain projects in your current job or organizations, and you have acquired certain project management skill. For that, of course, you have to study the basic fundamental project management. So I would say that immediately people shouldn't go for PMP certification.
Mhm,
First, they should acquire the fundamental knowledge. Then they should practice project management in their day-to-day work. It does not matter whether they are working as a project manager in the organizations or not. They could be working in sales organization or supply chain organization or even production, but they can start to use a bit of tools and tips and tricks of project management in their day-to-day work. They should spend at least 2 to 3 years there. And after that, they should look at PMP, which is more advanced knowledge,
mhm.
more advanced certification for project management.
So, if you have to select a project manager in your team, so what are the important traits you would look at?
For project manager, as I said, depending upon the nature of project, let us say I'm currently working upon, I will choose the trait of the project manager. But definitely, I'm looking for somebody
Mhm,
who at least knows how to do WBS, because 50 to 60% of a project manager's time will get into making project charter and project plan. And if he does
mhm,
not know WBS, work breakdown structure, then he cannot make an efficient project plan. Second aspect is basically project communication. Let's call it maybe stakeholder management or collaboration. So this is another important aspect that is like applicable for highly cross-functional projects. So for these kind of projects, a project manager needs these skills like stakeholder alignment and project efficient project communication. Third aspect is basically now these days, as I said, a lot of tools are used. So if I'm doing a general project, then I would expect that person, he should know at least Zera, how to use it. If he does not know, at least he should have heard about Zera, because you can quickly learn. So he should at least have that mentality or mindset to basically use tools. We cannot depend on Excel these days. I think so. These are the three skill set or competencies which I will look for in a good project manager.
Wonderful, Sandeep. I believe it has been quite exhaustive discussion on the project management. I know it's a quite deep topic and cannot be covered in 60 or 90 minutes. So I believe we should leave our young audience with these thoughts today. And definitely, I will be grateful for the next session from you to talk more about in depth as we go further in the project management discussions.
Yeah. So you are right. I mean, because for me, it's way of life. I've
Yep,
been
yep,
practicing
yep,
project
yep.
management for last 11 or 12 years. So whatever we discussed, it is just tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
can
yeah.
talk for hours about project management. So
Yes.
definitely, depending upon the interest of your audience, if they want to look at any specific topic, we can dig deep, and I would be very happy to share what I have learned and experienced in my last more than a decade of career. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I always enjoy coming to your platform and sharing what I have learned, because this is the simplest thing you can do to feel little grateful to people. And so thanks for this opportunity to make me feel grateful about it.
Thanks a lot, Sandeep. It's likewise here as well. You are always available on a very short notice. As I just said in the beginning, we just chatted last night, and we are able to record a session. That is what I believe called the agility, important aspect of the project management.
Right.
That you are able to devote the time to what you believe is critical, sharing knowledge with the youngsters all across, not only from the small towns and cities, but also from the bigger cities or the people who are working in the different corporate. They keep on struggling. You have seen that. I have seen that in multiple projects. So
Yeah.
what kind of the team struggles? So an important topic, and then definitely I would be ever grateful to have you in the next upcoming sessions. Maybe session 4 and 5, we can deep down further in the different aspects of the project management. And of course, the China bit was quite interesting. And we would like to understand from you how Japan or South Korea, where you keep on traveling, how these countries look like, and what are those best practices available from our eastern neighbors as well as the developed countries around. So thanks a lot, Sandeep, and have a rest, balance Sunday. Enjoy with the family. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's always pleasure to come
Yeah,
back to your platform and share whatever I know. So
thanks
ever
a lot. Pleasure
grateful
is
and
mine.
would
Yeah,
love to come back. Thank
thanks
you.
a lot. Have a
Have
good
a
day.
bye.